Right, bear with me a second. Right, hopefully, hello. There we go. Hi, Gina. The meeting has started now, Vice Chair. Obviously, the Chair is going to join us shortly, so I'll do the initial sort of etiquette and introduction. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the meeting of the Homes and Safe Community Scrutiny Committee on Wednesday, the 6th of April at 6 p.m. I'm just going to do some housekeeping and etiquette, and then obviously the meeting proper can start then. So just to let everyone know, can I just remind everyone present that the meeting is being live streamed as well as recorded via the internet, and this recording will be archived for future viewing. Could all participants please mute themselves when not speaking in order to avoid any background noise or feedback when other participants are speaking? If a participant wishes to speak, can they please put their hand up if they can be seen on screen, or use the raise hand function on Teams otherwise. Please ensure that all debate is raised verbally and not via the chat function for the sake of the recording. The chat function may be used to highlight any technical issues to the Chair or to the Democratic Services Officer. If any participant has difficulty hearing or being heard when they are addressing the committee, then they should let the Chair or Democratic Officer know. If they have a webcam, then they should try turning this off, as this will help with broadband or Wi-Fi bandwidth, so at least they can hear and be heard. And that's the end of the etiquette, and I think Chair might have joined us now in order to start the meeting proper. I'll hand over to you now, Chair. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Apologies for being late. Technology is a pain at times. I do apologise. Okay, so Mark, are you able to put the agenda up on screen, because I haven't got my papers with me at the moment? Sorry. Trying to get my emails working on my laptop, on my phone now, because they'll be on there.
I'll just share my screen now. Hopefully that will bring it up shortly.
Thank you. I'm just having a terrible day for technology, so I do.
No, as Chair. Hopefully that's up for everyone now.
I can see it. Thank you. Okay, so item number 1 is apologies for absence. Do we have any?
Yes, we do, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Hanks, Councillor Perks and Councillor Brooks.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not sure if other members have got any they wish to share now, or...
I don't see any hands up.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any hands up, so I'm assuming there are no more apologies for absence. On to the next item, which is the minutes of the meeting held 9th of March 2022. Is everybody happy with those?
Yes. Yes, move we note.
Okay, have we got a seconder?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, to receive declarations of interest. Have we received any, or has anybody got any? Okay, again, no hands up, so I am assuming that is a no. All right then, so on to agenda item 4, which is the joint presentation, Housing and Building Services Digital Solution, and that of C1V. If you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. So, hi guys, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm relatively new to the council, so my name's Joshua Harris. I've been working as part of the business improvement team now for a number of months, working on a couple of different projects, mainly our CRM digital customer experience platform. So if Katie, if you want to introduce yourself as well, it'll be a joint presentation with myself and Katie Matthews.
Hiya, I'm Katie Matthews. I also work in the business improvement team. So I've been in the Vale about, 13 years now. So I'll be working on the project team as part of the housing system upgrade.
No problem. So if you don't mind, everybody, I'm going to share my screen now. And if you just confirm if everybody can see it as well.
I think Mark might need to stop sharing first.
No problem.
I've stopped sharing now, Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There we go. So if I just begin, can everybody see that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So if I begin, so thank you everybody for attending. So this is our myself and Katie's presentation. So we're going to run through the housing and building services customer solution. So this presentation is going to be split into two parts. So one part is going to be detailing the digital customer experience platform, of which is which we've been working on for the past 24 months or so. And then I'll hand you over to Katie, who will then detail and go through the NEC housing and building services system. So first of all, I'm just going to quickly speak about developing our new digital customer services platform for the council, and more so why. So why? First of all, why are we doing this? So over a number of years, we've seen a change in demand for online services. So for both of these projects, there's a commonality in our objectives. So what we want to do is to reflect our changes in customer behaviour. So what we want to do is provide a really good online experience and then making it accessible for all as well. So the current Oracle CRM systems runs out in summer 2020 and will no longer be available. So this is a big key issue for us that we need to make sure that we're on target with our project. What we're looking to see is a reduced costs in automation, reduced costs due to automation of the time-consuming paper-based processes, which we're currently experiencing, or we have experienced in the past. So why are we doing this as well? So it's part of the council's digital transformation journey. So what we're looking to is offer end-to-end digital transactions to increase customer satisfaction, compliance, and revenue. And what we're trying to also do is enable face-to-face and telephone transactions, which is important because we do also realize that not everybody has the ability or are not so internet literate. And then lastly, a third of local governments have actually adopted the Gov Service online service, and this is how we're modernising how we deal with licensing, permits, registrations, and just general service requests. So first of all, what is Gov Service? So it's a system built and used for governments, as I briefly mentioned. It's a multi-channel and digital approach to delivering public services. And what it includes is a modern form builder package and staff interface. So we are trying to improve the customer experience, but at the same time, we're also looking to improve the staff experience as well. So what we're looking is for to allow for a seamless customer experience and more efficient, streamlined workflows, which integrates with our Gov delivery communication platform as well, which I'll speak a little bit later as well. So a couple key features that I will briefly run over. So we deal with service request management. So there's a customer service hub, a customer portal, the smart online forms are available, and we do then have a staff portal, all of which can speak to each other and integrated to provide that one-stop experience for customers and staff alike. This is an example of what the customer portal looks like currently, and of which I'll demonstrate shortly as well after my presentation. But you can see it's an online form, and it's a easy to use interface. And what we're looking to do is improve the customer service. And as we can see from that form there, we have all of our services at the top. So I'm logged in there currently as an example. And from there, I can view my accounts, all the online services. So whether I want to apply, request, or report any service requests, I can detail my requests. I can go back and look at my historic views and look at progress as well. And we can also integrate council tax and benefits as well, but I won't go too much into that. So the customer service hub, I'll briefly go over this one. So what we're doing here is managing resident interactions. So it allows us to serve any customer, whether they're online, on the phone, or in person. so making it accessible to everybody. We can search and view resident details for historic and open service requests. We can raise service requests, so via C1V online or again in person, and then keeping it consistent. C1V operators view the same form as any customers online would, so it's creating that consistency for customers and staff as well. And there's just a couple of examples of what the customer service hub looks like. As you can see, it's a fairly straightforward interface. This is just myself viewing a customer, so I've created an account for myself there. So if I'm ringing up the call center, they'll find my details and I can raise a case or whatever service I'm requesting. So this is how they'll view, and then there's an example of a form. So that is the exact same form a customer would see if they were on the customer portal, and this is the same view as the staff would see in the staff portal. So it's, again, like I'm trying to keep it consistent across all channels. So there, we've got the smart online forms. So what we have done lately is we can quickly create, publish and maintain dynamic online forms. So these validate submission data in real time and allow residents to easily self-serve. So that's given the customers the time, giving them the opportunity to self-serve if they want, because we have seen this in the demand. So it allows the council to build a single process, workflow and integration set. And once we're ready to publish, it publishes into all channels at once. And again, smart online forms, so it's a feature, it just reduces development time, and we're keeping these standard across the whole board. There's just an example of what an online form would look like as you're filling it out. So again, we're keeping it simple. We've got the staff portal, just a quick overview of the staff portal. So it allows us to receive, review and process requests from a single portal. The case viewer supports collaboration between departments, which we've been making good use of lately. We can automate data transfer and improve the customer communications. So on that note, so it allows for automatic updates to customers via email integration. There's a lot of integrations available. I won't go through them all, but all these integrations enable that. They just give that better customer experience. So automatic updates, it keeps transparency between the council and residents, so they feel like it is part of one. And that's the customer portal. So you can see it's a streamlined workflow. The requests will come in. It'll be in a nice structured queue that you can go into, and there's many different features for the staff to filter and to find service requests and so on. So I'll quickly go over the implementation progress so far. So we did a soft launch of the 4th of December. So we've gone live for highways, parks and grounds and waste management, all for telephone, face-to-face and online. So what we've done this by service by service, and we have been learning our lessons along the way, and we can see a gradual improvement of our initial discovery phase. So it's this service by service approach. It's really helped us develop and improve our working. So currently we have 42 processes that are available in Oracle and now live on the customer portal. And we have approximately 93 remaining processes to be made live in Gov Service by the end of summer 2022. And this is our worst case scenario. And as I've said, as we've improved the way of working, the time of deployment between our discovery and our deployment is being reduced as well. So I'll quickly go over the service design approach of what have we been doing, and this is more towards what we're doing with housing at the moment. So what we'll start with is our discovery phase. We'll understand what the customers want and what we're trying to get from the service. So like I said, this is where we are with understanding housing at the moment. What we're trying to understand is what's on Oracle at the moment, what it needs to go into the Gov Service and what doesn't, and how we're going to build this. So that's where we are at the moment. We'll then move on to the alpha stage where we prototype and test. So at the moment, we have a 50-strong volunteer army of testers comprised of Vale employees and councillors, very kindly. And we're hoping then to extend this to a public beta testing ahead of the formal digital campaign launch. So that's where we are at the moment. So most of our process, we are at the beta stage before we go to our live stage. So we'll go into our live stage where we completed our phase 2, and I'll speak about phase 2 in the moment. So currently, the current usage of Gov Service, so as of the 31st of March, we have received 5,608 total transactions. More surprisingly, 1,856 were actually made by self-service, so customers online through the online portal, which is interesting because we haven't, so like I said, we've soft launched, we haven't advertised this. This is something we're doing at the end of the summer. But 30% or 33% are currently self-service. So there's clearly a demand to use this online service. So yeah, so that's in line with our digital customer journey. And then our next steps for CRM. So what's next for us? So what we're going to do is design, prototype, test, and build our remaining outstanding processes. So we're taking a lift and shift approach. So I'm talking about our learnings from our previous service areas. We've adopted a lift and shift approach, which gives us our minimal viable product. So this allows us to transfer exactly what's from Oracle, the same functionality, and make it available in Gov Service. And then we have like I said, the deadline of Summer 22 to remove all services. So once we are off Oracle completely, we can focus on our phase 2 of the project, which is to redesign and improve the customer experience. So what we're looking to is build brilliant experience for customers across all of their preferred channels. So it's taking the existing functionality and then how can we improve this functionality and further create a greater customer experience. And then following that phase 2, what we're looking to do, well, Katie's going to discuss in the moment, is how we're going to integrate the new housing and building services platform. So to integrate these two, what we're aiming to do is build a seamless platform for all customers and staff alike. So what I'm going to do now, I'll go through a quick demo of what the portal looks like and how easy and effective it is to raise a service request, and then I'm going to pass you over to Katie, who will then go over the new housing and building services platform. So, okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I will bring up a new screen now. So there we go. So can everybody see that okay? So this is the current customer portal at the moment. So this is the test environment where we do a lot of our testing. So what we do, it's a customer portal. It's accessible without logging in. You don't have to create an account at the moment, but we are going to promote people to do so because of the many services you get. So if we quickly log in. This is a single sign-on. So once you've signed on, you'll be in your customer portal and you can view all the readily available services. Virgin Media's been a little bit slow this evening. So there we go. So once I've signed in, I have many different options. So I can view my different accounts. This could be my housing rents, my council tax and benefits. I've got all my different service requests that I've raised and our many different online services. So if I go to our online services, and then I can apply, request and report for many different service requests. I can also search as well. So what I'm looking for is to raise a pothole. And we see there we got many services that link towards potholes. And so we got big fill, insurance claims and potholes. So if I raise a quick pothole, so I'll come in, as I've already logged in, it's already pre-populated with my details. So all the back office will see this and my address. So nothing to do there. And then we'll go into the actual location of the problem. So like I said, this is the form, simple form to use and navigate. We'll raise it as a bit on the pavement and then a bit of functionality. So if I was from Cardiff and I was raised a pothole wrongly on the Vale of Glamorgan, if I chose anywhere in Cardiff, you would see that this location is not within the Vale of Glamorgan and that it won't let me proceed. So if I quickly select a location in Barry and I'll just do outside Romley Park. So I'll drop a pin on the map and we can see we've placed a pin on this address here and I'll give a detailed location. So it's outside the entrance. A bit of detail to the back office, a bit of description. So it's a large pothole. Bit of information. And then once I can do, Once I've filled that in, I'm happy. I can upload a photo if I want to, and then I can submit then as well. So at the moment, it's not submitting because there was an issue earlier, but what I'll do, I'd submit that, and then I would get an email saying thank you for your service request, and we'll deal with it. And like I said, with the integration, I'll get regular updates from the service area. So that's just an overview of the current CRM platform. And I'm going to hand you over to Katie, who will go through the Housing and Building Services platform.
Okay, so just get my screen share up. Okay, yeah, so as mentioned, my name is Katie and I will be part of the project team for the Housing and Building Services system upgrade. So at the moment, the team have several different systems that are all linked to provide and coordinate housing and support services to the council's 4,000 tenants. Some of these systems are over 20 years old, so the systems have either reached end of life or are about to reach this stage. The council have undertaken a tender to appoint a single provider offering integration across all modules. As part of the tender exercise, suppliers were invited to provide a demonstration of their systems, and housing staff were also invited to be involved. All housing staff were asked to provide feedback on their preferred system, and there was an overwhelming consensus for the preferred system. So we have now appointed NEC. They are our current provider and deliver homes currently. We are about to sign off the contract, so we have a provisional start date of the 27th of April, and the project will run for 12 to 18 months with staff focus groups commencing in May. So the system itself will be on a cloud-based server and will be on a web-based application. So this means that the system is accessible from any device. So that's a mobile phone, a tablet and a computer. There'll be a customer self-service element as well, so the portal will be fully embedded on the Vale of Glamorgan website. So when customers access Gov Service, as Josh has just run through with you now, they will be seamlessly moved from Gov Service through to Housing Online. So the system itself is user-friendly and is very visual interface as well. The software is fully configurable and bilingual, so the Vale of Glamorgan can update it and customize it exactly how we want. The dashboard for the staff can also be customized as well, so it covers the variety of areas. So for instance, somebody in repairs might want a different dashboard for somebody in homes view, so it gives staff the ability to customize it to suit their needs. The system also allows us to communicate with customers in bulk and individually by text message, email and by letter. So this is a screenshot of the system that the staff will see. So I'm just going to demonstrate how the system will appear on the different devices. So this is how it will appear on a computer. This is on a tablet and then on a mobile phone as well. So the benefits of the project, so it will improve service delivery and increase efficiency. It will consolidate of individual modules into one system with one supplier. The system, as mentioned, is cloud-based and web-based, so that aligns with the council's digital strategy. The channel shift will encourage residents to access services online, which also then improves staff resources and staff time. It will also improve communication with customers and allows automation and reduction of duplication. So as I mentioned earlier, it does have the facility to send text messages, letters and emails. So for instance, if in a communal block a repair is raised, a notification will then be sent out to all of the tenants in that block to advise them that the lift is broken. We are aware and we will be out to fix that. So it just minimises the duplication of that work as well. So what are the benefits for the staff? So it's a single view of each customer and each property. So it's like a one-stop shop of all information for the staff. So instead of having several different systems to try and check, we've got one system, so it will be more user-friendly for the staff as well. It allows the staff to manage the whole life cycle and maintain that golden thread of information. So it's a single version of the truth. The system has great analytics and reporting facility. So at the click of a button, you've got access to a lot of preset reports, but also we can customize them and pull through whichever information that we need. It also provides automated work tray management and work distribution. And I've got some screenshots on the next slide, so I'll show you that in more detail. The back office is fully integrated with the online system as well. So for instance, if a customer phones up to arrange a repair over the phone, as soon as they put the phone down, if they check online, that information will be there. The mobile working at the moment is only available to a certain number of staff, so the new system will allow mobile working for all staff. This will enable more information to be captured at the initial point. So for instance, when the property is a void and we need to undertake a void inspection, the maintenance officers can attend and raise a repair and any necessary work there and then from their mobile device. The system also allows the ability to view and edit any documents from any device as well. So again, if a tenancy officer is out with a customer, it allows us to go through any paperwork or any tenancy agreements with the customer there and then. It's also got great compliance and asset management tools as well. So I'll just give you an idea on the next screen. So this is a few screenshots as mentioned. So we've got the automated work tray management here. So as you can see, it's color coded as well. So if there's a new job that's come in, that will flag up, or if there's anything overdue, that's also flagged up. We've got the account analytics, so you can pull through so many reports. You can have it in this format, you can customize the format for pie charts, bar graphs. We've got so much information that we can pull through. We've got embedded dashboards, so again, it's visual, so it's got that information there, but we can also click through to find out more information, and asset management as well. So it helps us with our sort of compliance with the fire safety, the gas servicing as well. So it's all managed through the system. So here are some screenshots to show you what the mobile system will look like for staff. So just to give you an idea, there's many functionalities that they've got here. But we've also got the integration mapping as well. So when you click in for your next job, it will come through and it will show the map, so you can go directly then to that job. So what are the benefits of the customer? So it's an improved customer interface and improves communication with us. The tenants can upload documents online and can also view documents online. So for instance, maybe if they wanted to show proof of identification, you can just take a picture on their phone and upload it directly to the portal. It's also got a great tool, so it's the repair finder. So at the moment that is preloaded with hundreds of images. That's a really good tool to help customers be able to report a repair. Again, I'll show you that in the next few slides. The system also allows customers to book, rearrange and cancel appointments online. So we do have issues with aborted calls. So for instance, if a maintenance officer is going to attend and maybe somebody's not there, we do have issues with that. So it will improve that because it gives customers control to be able to log on and rearrange an appointment if they're not going to be there. The account also gives customers the chance to view their full account history, any actions, rent balances, any payments they've made. So it's really convenient and provides customers quick and instant access to their information. It also allows customers to set up payment plans online and to download any rent statements as well. So when customers log on to Gov Service and then they want to to access housing online, they'll then be brought through to this screen. So they will be seamlessly moved from Gov Service through to housing online. So this screenshot, it is only the test system, so it will be slightly different when we do go live, but it will have the Veil branding and the Veil colours, and it will, most importantly, be consistent for the customers. We can personalise it to however we want, so we choose what information the customer has access to. I'm not sure if you can see the red writing as well by here, so we can have personalised messages on there. So for instance, if a customer logs on and they do a gas service, we can that will pop up, and that's automatically managed as well. So when that appointment has been made, the message will disappear. So as I mentioned earlier, we've got the repair finder, which is such a great tool to help the customers raise a repair. It's very visual. So at the moment it's preloaded, but we can add anything on there that we see fit as well. So it's broken down in sort of like electrics, doors, windows. So for instance, if customer has a problem with the tap on the bath, they can click on bath and showers, and then they're presented with the next screen. So again, it narrows down those options. So we've got a broken tap on the bath. So again, we'll click on bath, and this is then what we'll be presented with. So again, we can customize the options, we can customize the pictures, and it just helps gather that information that we need and prompts the customer to give us the information that we're looking for. Customers also have the option to be able to upload pictures as well. So again, that will help in the back office because it gives us that visual. Once the customer have selected, so say for instance a tap, it will then be taken through to another screen to confirm the repair, and they can then also book in an appointment and also view any repair. So if they've got a repair and they've maybe forgotten when the appointment is, they can just log online and then it's available there for them. So the two systems, so Gov Service and NEC Housing, so it's there to improve the customer experience. So these systems allows us to not only improve the self-service element, but it better equips staff to more effectively deal with customer inquiries over the phone and face-to-face. So the project teams are working in collaboration to ensure that the systems are consistent and seamless. The experience for the customer is totally seamless. So the overarching principles of the two systems is to ensure great customer service, improve communication and improve productivity. So those principles will influence the design and how the two systems interact. So thank you very much for listening, and me and Josh will take any questions now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Josh and Katie, both for that very much. Okay, I do have one question about the housing one, Katie. When is that going live?
So the project will start. We've got a provisional start date of the 27th of April. We're hoping that it'll be live within the first 12 months, but it will be released in modules.
Okay, all right. So I do have somebody wanting to ask questions, and the first one is Councillor Nugent-Finn. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, Chair. I think Heather might have been first, and it's a legacy hand. I'm not sure. You muted, Heather.
Well, when I had a look at the list of people speaking, yours was the only hand up. But Heather,
I may be wrong, Chair. I just.
You're muted, Heather.
Right, Rachel, if you go first, I'll go after you.
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Chair. It's probably my intermittent Wi-Fi signal, so I do apologise. I hope you can all hear me okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'll keep the camera off because I think it does improve it slightly. I think it's probably going to be a mixture of questions to Katie and Josh, because it was two very good presentations. So I'm going to try and do it in order, if that's all right, and I won't take up too much time. But Josh, initially, I'm looking on the slides. This was a soft launch, and it's got the date 4th of December 2021. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah. So we went live with our 3 service areas, as I mentioned. So on the 4th of December 2021, yes.
Okay, and so the going forward now, it's going to be further drip fed with a proper launch, so it becomes more of an official service. Is that the thinking behind that, Josh?
Correct, yes, Councillor. So what we're going to do is, once we have got all of our existing services off Oracle onto the Gov Service platform, we're currently going to be running a communications campaign. So how we're going to launch it, how we're going to promote it, and how we're going to direct people there. That'll be our hard launch, and yes, that's when we're going to actively promote the usage of our CRM portal and our system. And hopefully, yeah, as you can see, even just from the soft launch, there's clearly demand for people to self-serve online. So yeah, that's what we're going to do and promote once we've actually finalised and got our existing services off Oracle onto Gov Service. Yes.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Josh. Did you mention volunteers, 50 volunteers?
So 50 volunteers, yeah. So we currently have a tested team of 50 volunteers. That's Vale Morgan staff and councillors alike as well. So yeah, we're very happy and proud of these guys for helping us. We've received valuable feedback and insights into actually changing our processes and to having different content and how it's supposed to be displayed. So it's worked really well with our testing, our pool, yes.
Lovely. Any service users part of that volunteer group, Josh?
So Tony, I can't remember the full breakdown of service users but I believe there are a couple. Tony, do you want to explain on that one?
Yeah, we recognise that lots of our staff are also residents and tenants in the Vale, and so last October, I think it was, we communicated with all staff looking for volunteers to help with user acceptance testing off the new platform. So I suppose that was a quick and easy way to involve residents in the testing as part of the work that Josh mentioned for phase 2. So once we're secure, we've got everything off Oracle, and when that system shuts down, we know we haven't lost anything. We want to do a significant amount of process redesign work. And a key part of that will actually be reaching out to our residents and tenants and asking them what they think about the services, what they value, both and across multiple channels. So, you know, if they contact us by telephone, what's important to them, what outcomes do they want, how should they feel about the process, similarly online or face to face. So we'll start that kind of user research element once we're doing the kind of service redesign work as part of phase 2, but that will start probably in June this year.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks, Tony. I'm just thinking, with more sort of service user representation, it will ease that transition a lot better, because if you've got you know, fantastic people like Heather or some of the, you know, heads of community groups sort of saying, look, this is how we use it, it's going to take quite a lot of the sting out of it during that transition. So I think that would be really important, you know, as part of how you move this forward as a team, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And sorry, go on.
Go on, Tony. Sorry.
I was just going to say that the bit that you didn't see in Josh's presentation is that at the end of every process, we ask customers to rate their experience. So we collect a 1 to 5 rating, and we will be using the responses to that survey to target work. So if we've got some services which are getting 5s, some processes which are getting 5s, well, great. We can see what works well in those processes. But if we've got some which are getting 1s and 2s, then we know that's where we need to target our effort to improve them as well.
Sure. Thank you very much, Tony. Josh, the sort of reporting of a pothole, so is that going to replace the C1V element? So
no, not at all. So that the C1V element is still going to be there for all processes. So emails, phones are still available. It's creating a more accessible environment. So if not everyone will want to self-serve, so the phones will be available to raise service requests. C1V, if people are ringing up, they can, and like I said, the staff will view the exact same forms as the customers would view in the customer portal. So it keeps that consistent approach, and so there's no elements missing. And yeah, so yeah, to answer your question, Councillor, yeah.
Okay.
C1V will be readily available.
So got it. Thank you, Josh. So to use the example pothole, then that would be then reported to the relevant service. It would go straight to highways.
Correct. Yeah. So it improves the transparency. So it's proactive communication between resident and back office. So CSRs will not always have to get involved. So again, like Katie said, for her system, it's allocating resources elsewhere. So it just facilitates that as well.
Lovely. And maybe this might be more for Katie, but I don't mind who answers it really. There's, you know, the 2 lists, benefits for staff, benefits for customers, are great. There was more for staff than it was customers, but then I think that's enlightened self-interest, because if the staffer have got a huge amount of benefit, that should then benefit the customers. I think I know what I mean. I hope you all do. I'm just wondering, I'm just going to put this out there. Could we include something in very discreetly, the ability to report domestic violence or abuse or neglect issues on that list, because that would be a very, very useful way of communicating, certainly from the female point of view, because again, I don't mean to sound, but perhaps in a household, predominantly sometimes it can be the female who takes charge with these things, so there would be an opportunity there to raise a concern about herself or her children or a household or a neighbour. Food for thought there, folks, but I would just like to, raise that at this committee. I think that's probably something that would need to be discussed again, but it's an opportunity that I think we don't want to miss.
So I'll just quickly jump in, Councillor. So, well, like I said, regarding, in terms of housing, we are still at our discovery stage. So this is the conversations myself and the project team will have with the housing service area, and we'll capture all these elements if and when required. I know Tony and Mikey both got their hands up, so if you want to jump in there.
Yeah, go ahead. Tony, you're muted.
I know. I just said something really interesting as well, but Pat is gone now. So I think the really important thing about both of these systems is that we're not buying a set of pre-built forms and processes. They're both really flexible, and actually they're tools for building processes and workflows. So absolutely, if we thought it was a great idea to give an opportunity to report domestic violence or anything else, we can build that process, and something which isn't really the same, but maybe related in some ways. We've just built our internal whistleblowing process in the Gov Service platform, and of course confidentiality and data protection, as in all services, is particularly important in terms of whistleblowing, because people have legal protections, etc. So we can restrict access to information on either platform based on their user profiles. So we do have the opportunity to really do whatever we think is useful.
Yeah, it could just be a certain symbol that would flag something in a relevant department, Tony. But if you can imagine, it might be the only opportunity somebody has to report, concerns at home, as I said, or neighbouring, neighbours, etc. My only tiny little bit of negative before I go is everything is Wi-Fi and tablet required. That's my only concern. I know it's across the tablet, a phone, etc., but it's not going to meet every demographic. That's my only negative. Thank you very much all for your presentation, and thank you, Chair.
Mike, I believe you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention clearly the housing solution is a tenant solution, and the question in relation to wider, whether somebody reporting that through the portal would be appropriate or not, or whether it would be if somebody had an issue that they could perhaps be provided with advice, assistance and signposting to more specialist services. That might be an area where we would want to look. So rather than reporting something necessarily directly, it may be making sure that there's a very clear path for that person to raise their issue or concern. I think some of those issues, we tend to find, and I'm sure others on the call, practitioners on the call, will tend to find that we come across those issues through our face-to-face contacts and through the questioning and the approach that we take in dealing with the customer. I think that is probably where we dedicate and direct our resources to. I appreciate if somebody wished to report online through an open portal like that, that would be fine. But I'm not sure whether most people would see that as how they would wish to perhaps explore or express that concern, and signposting. But of course, we'll look at that. We'll speak to our support providers as well, because equally they're an important element in this response. Hopefully that answers that part. Can I just come back to the question that Chair, you raised around implementation and phasing?
Yep, we still have Heather waiting to speak as well. So
sorry,
yeah, just to let you know.
Just very briefly.
Yeah, you can come back to that.
We've obviously had initial conversations with the provider. We're not in contract as of today. We should be in contract before the end of the month. And part of the initial project setup meeting for that implementation phase will be about setting the project going forward. One of the things, and I'm sure that it's the same thing Tony faces, is the amount of resource and capacity that you can dedicate to that implementation. So I suppose we're thinking a 12-month. I think it's unlikely to be along the realms of 6 months. It could be towards the end of that 12-month period. And we may adopt the phasing approach that Tony has mentioned. So we may go live with some services before others. But that will be in the mix for the discussion that we have at that phase with NEC at that time. And we're due to have those conversations. I think, Katie, we've got dates in the diaries already. So so the process will start very, very soon.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I'm just going to bring Heather in now. She's been waiting so patiently. Heather, you're muted again.
Right, can you hear me? Yeah. One of my problems is C1V. It takes a very long time to get an answer. And when you're like, I was 15 in line this week. And when you report something, then it's supposed to go to the like I reported my fence. So it goes to the fence people and then it's done and they come out and have a look and they tell you can do or not. I had a surprising telephone call saying, has my fence been done? And they said no. They said, well, can you ring up and remind them? And a week later, can I ring and remind the job that was put in months ago? You know, it was confusing for me. I thought, well, once the job is in, it should be allocated, shouldn't it? Any answers?
That would definitely make sense.
Mm-hmm.
I would need to look at the specific issues. I think I would say in terms of queuing at the contact centre right now, we're working. We've had a significant impact of COVID, and in fact, in terms of staff absence, the impact is greatest now than it has been through the entire pandemic.
Yeah.
And currently, we're working on about 60% staff capacity, and that has led to much longer wait times than we would want.
Oh yeah.
You know, we're actively working to support staff obviously back into work, and we're taking precautions to minimise transmission rates. And the other thing that has impacted us significantly, and I know it's been experienced right across the council, it is difficulty in filling positions. So we had some more call handlers started this week and are training, but we're still carrying vacancies, and we're looking at different ways of filling those vacancies. So working with secondary schools, looking at the potential to bring school leavers in over May and June to give them some kind of employment as well. So yeah, absolutely. You know, in terms of wait times, they're longer than we would want right now, but we're really trying hard to plug those gaps.
I was lucky if I used my husband's phone, but if it was a household phone, I would have had to put it down, like, because I couldn't afford the 45-minute wait.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. You know, and apologies don't make up for the fact.
Oh no, I'm not. You know, I'm just simply outsiders, like, you know.
Yeah. But I can absolutely reassure you that we're doing everything we can do to get the resources on the phone to make sure that those wait times come down.
Mhm.
And it has been escalated within the organisation to see if we can get some help with that. In terms of the specifics around your fence, I think I need to do a wee bit of digging to find out what's happened there, because you're absolutely right. Once it's reported,
It was strange, like,
it should just happen, shouldn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the really important things, though, is we mentioned in terms of Gov Service, and I'm sure it'll be the same in the for the NEC housing solution system. The technology gives us the opportunity to look at how our services are delivered and how the processes work, and the functionality to be able to improve those, improve communication, for instance. So that is absolutely something over the next kind of year or so. And I'm sure Mike, once he gets the initial implementation out of the way, will take that opportunity as well to engage with our tenants and our other residents to find out what they want from our services, how they want them delivered, what they value from how we deliver them, and then make sure that those are reflected in how our services are constructed and the processes that we put in place to deliver those. So I know that doesn't help with your fence issue right now.
That's not important, but it's just in the I could understand why I had to go through them processes.
Yeah, I will do a bit of investigation and I'll get back in contact with you if that's okay. And
you've got my number and everything.
Yeah, I know how to get hold of you.
All right, thank you very much, Dan.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more questions? I don't see anybody's hands up. Before you guys go, I just want to say thank you very much again. The both informative reports, presentations, I should say, and wish you all the best of luck with it, and that everything gets set up as soon as you can, because it looks like it's going to be an extremely useful tool for everybody. I'm also very, very glad that Rachel asked the question about whether C1V and emails and everything are going to be staying, because I was going to ask that myself. Not everybody is going to have access to the internet. Not everybody is going to have a computer, a tablet, or a mobile phone that can access internet. Also, no system is infallible. There are going to be times when it goes down. So you do need those backups, and I'm awfully glad that they are staying. So thank you.
No problem. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much for everyone for listening as well.
Thank you.
No problem. It's up to you guys. If you want to stick around, you can. If not, you can go off home and make yourselves a cup of tea.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, well, thank you. Best of luck with it all. Okay, so agenda item 5 is the impact report on the one-stop shop. I can't remember who's taking that.
It'll be, I believe, Heddwyn, John and Lorraine from Pobble. Lorraine Griffiths as well from Pobble are here to present.
All right, thank you. If you'd like to go ahead then.
Good evening all. Just introduce myself. My name is Heddwyn John. I'm the Supporting People Team Coordinator in the Housing Department. I'm here this evening with Lorraine. Lorraine, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lorraine Griffiths and I'm the Area Manager with Parbour for the Vale of Glamorgan and Bridgend. Thank you.
So I was asked to, by the department, to just produce an impact report on the one-stop shop, which has been operating in the Vale now for 2 years, actually. Just to give the councillor, give yourselves an update on how the new service has been getting along since its launch. I don't know if the report has been circulated. Has anyone seen a copy?
Yeah, that's correct, Heddwyn. We've given the report out to members and is in the public domain as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll give you just a brief talk then on the one-stop shop. Some of you may, just in case you haven't seen the report, or just to give a brief summary really on the service. So, like I said, I work for the Supporting People team in the Housing Department. So we commission out housing-related support services to support people, vulnerable people across the Vale with any tenancy issues or housing issues that they may have. This is a grant-funded programme from Welsh Government, and each local authority in Wales have a similar service, really. So in terms of the one-stop shop, historically, we didn't have one in the Vale. We had two basic methods of delivering support. We had what we called floating support. And what that entails was if someone presented with a housing support need, risk of homelessness, rent arrears, situation with benefit claims, that sort of thing, then they would be assessed and put on a waiting list, which could be a few weeks, could be lengthy depending on demand. And then they'd get allocated a floating support worker. That support worker would go out and see them, potentially in their home or wherever they were staying, and develop a support plan and come up with actions to help that person with their housing support needs. That could be finding new accommodation, help them with their benefit claims, so on and so forth. The other model is supported accommodation, where people come into specific accommodation that we have, where support is located on site. So in around about 2018, we basically did a review of our services and identified that there's a gap. We had, waiting lists were quite lengthy. We were finding that some service users were, would basically not present in. They didn't want those kind of support. Maybe they didn't want a support worker to come see them in their home, or maybe they didn't want to go and support accommodation. So we came up with what we call brief intervention support. And we worked with our partners and our support providers to develop that process. And what that basically entails is a support framework which condenses down support for people who just want brief support with an urgent housing crisis. For example, they may have had a letter, council tax arrears, DWP, something like that. So just to get some quick wins with service users as quickly as possible, really. And if you recall, back in 2019, we obviously received approval from Cabinet to take this further and commission a one-stop shop. The idea being that we would have a building located in a central location in the Vale, in Barry, with trained support staff working there, and that members of the public, customers, service users could present with their housing issues. They could speak to a trained support worker, and they could get their advice and support, help with these with these bills, rent arrears, eviction issues, there and then, rather than having to wait on a waiting list potentially, and have people come and see them. This made it more proactive, sort of empowered them to come and access those services. And of course, as you recall, around about March 2 years ago, a little thing called COVID appeared. Well, lockdown appeared just as we were launching the service. We did complete a tendering process out in the marketplace, and the contract was awarded to Pobl Care and Support, who delivered the service. And the service launched just after lockdown, really, which kind of, well, I say kind of, it did. It interfered with the plans for the launch. In terms of COVID regulations, obviously risk assessments have to be done on the building, numbers of people inside. Obviously, it was decided that having just people presenting, as we're familiar with most offices and so on, that was a risk in terms of COVID. So for most of the last 2 years, the service has been operating largely as a telephone-based service. People can present, but then they can have appointments, rather than calling as and when, just to make sure that the building isn't too crowded, and as much support has been done as possible over the phone where possible. And in some cases, staff have gone out to see people. So in terms of a new service, I mean, how is it different? I mean, I did touch upon how support can be done a lot quicker. Obviously, because people are coming to the support staff, that means they can see a lot more service users. They can deliver more support in the same time frame. So over the last 2 years, according to the data we've from Pobl, thank you for supplying to us. So they've supported over 1,700 individual people in the last two years, basically. And that doesn't include March. Actually, March just gone, so actually it's probably even higher than that. And those are just individuals. That doesn't take into account, for example, that they're often from households with families. They often people come in on repeat visits. So the actual footprint and positive impact is going to be much larger than that 1,700 individuals. So in terms of the numbers, it is our largest support service in the Vale, a housing support service. In terms of actual quantity of people it's been delivering support to, and that's had a positive impact on our waiting list. So as it currently operates, and as this is what we came up from inception really, was that when someone had some quick wins we could get with them, some needs that could be done very quickly, a benefit claim, a phone call to Housing Solutions, support with letters, for example. The support workers would do that, and then they'd also make part of an assessment, see if that person required longer term support, and then they would refer them through for the waiting list. So before the launch, really, our waiting list was up to around 80, 90 individuals, and some people could wait on there for some time, weeks, even a month or two for someone with a lower level need. The advantage of the one-stop shop now is we're down to around 50 individuals, and that's on the waiting list. But those are people that have already been assessed by the one-stop shop. So, anything that could have been done quickly with those individuals, the support team in the one-stop shop would have delivered that support. So in terms of speed and in terms of efficiency, it's significantly improved things. In fact, it's been so good, demand has been obviously with the COVID-19 pandemic, cost of living crisis, demand has been much higher than anticipated. So we have actually expanded it by an additional support worker on a 12-month basis to increase throughput. As part of our ongoing monitoring, we've had a lot of positive feedback about the one-stop shop in terms of quality, but because demand was so high, we were advised, by some that we needed more capacity there. So the part of our learning process was to improve that. As you'll probably see in the report, we are required to collect outcomes information, which is set by Welsh Government. And the real positive thing, from the outcomes is that we can see the majority of service users are making progression across a range of support areas that are vital for housing support. So in terms of feeling safe, contributing to the safety and well-being and others, managing accommodation, managing relationships, managing money, engaging in education and learning, employment and voluntary work, people feeling mentally healthy or physically healthy. Across all those areas, majority of service users have made progression. Now, in terms of how this service is configured, it is only short-term support. So we are also constantly monitoring our projects and comparing them and see how things can be developed and where we can improve. And I'm pleased to say that we have some very good outcomes here in comparison to our existing services. One of the concerns, one of the unknowns was, in terms of, because it's such an innovative service, Welsh Government's framework, which goes back to 2010, I think, Lorraine, probably correct me if I'm wrong. It's a very old framework, and it's designed for very slow, laborious support. So Welsh Government's often looking for longer term goals, which obviously this is a one-stop shop which deals with initial issues as quickly as possible and refers on. So it's not geared for that. But thankfully, so when looking at the outcomes, we still have positive outcomes really in considering the framework we have is of that age. In the report, you will note that there are several case studies that Lorraine kindly provided, just use as examples really for some of the work that the good work, the positive work that One Stop Shop has delivered. Obviously, the information is anonymised really, but as you can see there, in all those examples, we are looking at vulnerable people, for example, who are being helped to make the Homes for You bid. They've been helped to get white goods for their property because they've got no cooking, or they've got no freezer, or they've got no microwave. So that house has a real positive impact for that family. You know, in terms of cost of living crisis, you know, which is affecting everyone, the One Stop Shop has been helping people with their universal credit claims, council tax reductions, which can make a real meaningful difference to people's housing situation. You know, things like PIP renewals, the personal independent payment, which is a benefit through the DWP. That's a complex. If anyone's ever worked with one of those forms, like Lorraine, the expert, she can tell you all about it. That's a very complex form, you know, process. And you know, we've got the One Stop Shop has obviously got qualified, experienced staff who works with vulnerable people to claim that. And without that support, those individuals could be waiting for several weeks, really. And in the meantime, if they're not getting money through, then as you can imagine, that's having a potentially a real negative impact on their well-being, their welfare, their housing status. You know, in terms of homelessness, homeless prevention is a key part. It's a key part of the One Stop Shop. So, you know, without sort of rehashing the report there, I think you can see that there's a great deal of positive outcomes for those particular individuals, and those are just 4 individuals, 4 of the 1700 or so that have been seen in the last 2 years now, since COVID. And of course, obviously the COVID pandemic has impacted the launch. Lorraine again can talk to you a little bit about that. So things have had to be done differently, but now with the restrictions easing, we slowly moving back to how we originally intended the One Stop Shop to be delivered. But again, it's a learning curve. It's been, well, I think all departments in a local authority, and of course all agencies across the country, the world, even over the last 2 years, have probably learned a huge amount. And of course, so we're obviously looking to continuously improve and develop this service. For example, increasing the capacity there when it was needed, just to improve the obviously service delivery and the customer experience, really. I think that's me just waffling on a bit about the project. Obviously, I'm very pleased with it. Lorraine, I've asked Lorraine if she could attend, just maybe to talk a little bit about you know, the implementation there. I don't know. I don't want to keep the councillors too long, but Lorraine, do you want to just talk them through about how it was launched, and you know, any obstacles you've had to overcome and any successes there you feel you've managed to deliver with the service?
Absolutely. We're very proud of this service. You know, we've got a very similar service in Bridgend, but because the county boroughs are different, it does deliver in a different way, because we you know, we need to meet the needs of each area. And I think obviously the pandemic really hit the launch quite badly, in that because we couldn't open. But we were surprised at the demand that that we had, even though it was a remote service. So it was particularly difficult. Recruitment, again, training staff in this environment, again, was something that we, it took us to be quite inventive across the board with how we manage things. But there were lots of positives over the last 2 years. The links we've developed with the food bank, I mean, and it's an unfortunate necessity that that every area has, but the food bank has been a particularly close friend of the One Stop Shop, and one of the plans we have as we move into back to a new normal is to have a drop-in service, so that we actually are there when people come to the food bank, so that we can sort of like identify people's other needs, not just the fact that they don't have enough food, but obviously how can we get them to be able to afford what do we need to do. So that has been one of the positives. Working with the DWP, we took the DWP was inundated over the last 2 years, and they were able to pass an awful lot of work to us to help people through the processes, to help them go through quicker. So, we've had a busy 2 years, but it's not the 2 years we anticipated. So it's nice. And obviously this time last year, we were hoping to have a launch that we are planning to do this July. So we will be inviting people to come to an open day to see the project. But how are we going to take it forward? For us, it's about we have to be careful about fully opening our doors at the moment because the staff team is still inundated through remote working. So to open the doors and have a flood of individuals completely, it may overwhelm the service. So we're opening the doors slowly. We're opening mornings to eventually open by July from 9 till 6, and then then 9 till 1 on a Saturday. So we hope to have the staff team are so looking forward to that, and seeing people and working with people. That's not to say we haven't done a lot of frontline work. Anyone who's turned up to the door of our drop-in has been welcomed in, even during the pandemic, and provided with a service. But obviously we couldn't advertise that because we couldn't have lots of people within the building due to our infection control measures. But it's for us now, it's the next steps. So fully opening the building, linking in with partners to come and use the space as well, to have because it's not just about us providing a service out of the building, it is other agencies. So we already have plans for communities for work, which I think is so important at the moment, to do Tuesday mornings. So we will be advertising that along with advertising our full opening hours. And then so we'll work, because we had plans to work with Mind, with Shelter, with lots of things to coming in, possibly the actual Housing Solutions team within the doors, so that we so that there are surgeries that people can come in and they'll know when those agencies are available. So we've got to rebuild those plans. We've also started making plans for workshops, because we have training facilities in our basement, so that we're doing workshops around budgeting, looking at tenancy building skills, and all things like that, so that we are sort of like re-engaging people. We can do it one-to-one, but if people are happy to work in a group, then we will do group work with them. So we've got a lot of plans. It's still in its early days, because like I said, but we are quite excited now to take the one-stop shop to where it needs to be, and that is a fully functioning open doors. The last thing we will then do is have drop-ins throughout the Vale. I know we've already started going to Palmerston Adult Learning Centre, and we're also looking at the Barry College again, as well as the food bank. But then we're going to look at where do we need to do drop-ins throughout the Vale, and do pop-ups to see and advertise where we need to where we're going to be, and see the demand in those areas and take it forward from there. So yeah, exciting times, and I'm looking forward to seeing as many people at our open day, or open days, because maybe we'll need to have more than one, to ensure everyone has an opportunity to come and see it. It is worth seeing. It's very colourful. That's what I mean. You can't miss it. The location that we would manage to get is so perfect. It's just opposite the library, and you can't miss it. It's so colourful. So I'm looking forward to welcoming you all there. Thank you.
Well, thank you both. I will agree with you that place is very colourful. I walk past it quite often on Halton Road, and I am really looking forward to when we do the official launch, because I would love to come along, and I'm sure everybody on this committee would as well. But I do have one question. The question I have is regarding mental health services. You from what I've gathered in the reporting meetings tonight, you would talk to somebody and you would help signpost them onto other services that might be able to give them a bit more support than you could. Which other services would you kind of work with or refer on to? We would
potentially, the plan originally was to work with Mind. When we were talking, we've been awarded the contract, we'd already had initial conversations with Mind to come in and do workshops. So it's about linking together to ensure, obviously, if someone is really unwell, we would need to do the proper processes like any of our schemes would do and refer to statutory provision, to, you know, make an appointment to the GP. So, but we're looking at a lot of third sector agencies in the interim. So it'd be substance misuse services, mental health services, but it was mine that we particularly were intended to have, you know, they would come and do some workshops and sessions in the drop-in. We have also been fortunate enough to do and it's, you know, it doesn't look like Match, but it's a digital pod where if someone, we're set in the process of setting it up, that it's going to be soundproof. So if someone hasn't got computer facilities at home and they, you know, and they need to have counselling online or a meeting with a social worker online, we are setting up a digital facility that is soundproof, so they can go into this room and talk to a screen with or have counselling on the other side. So, but we've also got to remember that we're not the experts, so we will always signpost to the appropriate person. I mean, we've got services that are already heavily involved with, you know, complex needs individuals. One of the part of the work we are doing is drop-ins in the Tadros, where the most complex homeless individuals are at the moment. So we're quite used to working with statutory and third sector services around people's mental health. But it's remembering that we're not the experts, I think, because we like, you know, our staff like to solve everything, and you know, sometimes that's not always the best way.
Yeah, I know. You do feel in that situation that you want to do everything you can to help, and you want to solve it all yourself, so that you know you've done everything to help. Yeah. But that can sometimes lead to errors and problems further down the line. But it's great to have that attitude, though, as long as you know where to draw the line. The other thing, again, it's regarding mental health. It's a very big thing at the moment. What with COVID, and we all know the effect COVID has had on people's mental health with the lockdowns, the limited numbers of people being able to meet up, etc. The fact that at one point you weren't allowed to go out and see anybody anyway. Now we've started becoming out of all of that, and we're relatively back to normal in terms of restrictions. I would imagine that the mental health aspect for some people has started improving, but now we've been hit with the cost of living crisis, with the energy bills and national insurance rates rising, everything like that. And I would imagine that would also mean that people who had started improving with their mental health are now going to start suffering a setback. So I was just wondering if you've come across any cases like that. And if so, what kind of percentages, basically, when it comes to the mental health, what percentage roughly of people who come to you about mental health issues?
I would need to go and look at that, because it's not something I would have to hand.
Okay.
But we would, but in light of what we do have as part of the tender that we do have a welfare benefits officer who particularly is looking at individuals, and one of our key areas will be utility bills and the cost of living rises. What we're also looking to do as a wider pobl, and that's all my schemes, is look at arranging groups, because we used to have something called the Coffee Cove, and we used to have an engagement group. We're looking at, my staff are so excited at the moment, because we're looking at doing we're going to have a staff event to arrange a client-focused event that anyone will be able to go to in the summer to sort of like showcase services that are available for people. So that's what we're planning to do. And like I said, we are very excited, but I can look at figures for those particularly with mental health, because I mean, it would come through, we record them for the outcomes that we pass to the local authority. So so we'd be able to pick that back up to see if they register. A lot of them don't tell us that key point though. and
Yeah.
we tend to find out afterwards when we're sort of going through the second stage process and assessing them. But you know, I will do my best to get those statistics to you.
Okay, thank you. I was mainly curious because even in the 21st century, there is still a lot of stigma surrounding mental health. And I was just curious as to how people felt approaching strangers discussing these issues, and whether there would have been, whether it seemed like there were more people talking about it now to strangers and asking for help now than there were a few years back. That's mainly what I was kind of wondering mainly.
And I think that's why we've done an awful lot about the environment of to make it welcoming, because we want people to feel comfortable when they walk through the door. Because I mean, we operate in, and I mean, it's Heatherwyn will know, we operate in a psychologically informed way, and that means we have to take on board individual situation, understand that person so that we are able to support them, and our culture is as important in that, and how we come across as a staff team, and the environment that we're in to make them feel welcome. But I mean, we also have to, it has been important for our staff as well. So we've had to up an awful lot of, we do a lot of reflection sessions. We've got a team, a wellbeing team now centrally, who come out to reflect with, because I mean, our staff are taking on a lot of trauma. So there's coaching sessions, we do wellbeing sessions. So we understand that mental health has increased, but we try to make it, it's not normal, but we try to make it that, we accept people for what they are. But
I know what you mean.
But maybe we don't always record the mental health situation because we're looking at that immediate crisis. But what we do record it for the referral form to move them onto the gateway, and we would record it for the outcomes.
Good, thank you. If you don't mind, I'm just going to bring Heatherwyn in quickly before we go on to the other two waiting. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, I was just going to touch on the mental health there. So I don't have the statistics to hand in front of me, but we do an annual needs mapping survey, and mental health is consistently in the top 3 of our support needs.
Okay.
Although just the caveat I would stress with that, when we ask obviously people, your service users regarding mental health, you can have obviously a huge range of conditions or how people present to you. So in some cases you could have someone with obviously experiencing very severe mental health, and we refer to a bespoke service straight away. But for a lot of service use, I'd like to say it's a secondary issue. If someone is about to be evicted, they've got £3,000 rent arrears, the landlord is unlawfully chucking them out, or all sorts of real just distressing and stressful, then inevitably for many people that does have a negative impact on their mental health. So even though services like the one-stop shop aren't specialist mental health, for a lot of the service users, when they are filling in that PIP form with the service user, helping that eviction to be stopped, working with housing solutions to find a homeless person temporary accommodation, those interventions do improve for many of those service users their mental health. Obviously, when someone has a severe clinical case of whatever condition, that's a separate matter, but helping those housing things will improve something, won't it? Just from my experience. But I can get the stats for you, Councillor. I can certainly go through the last report we did and email. Well, I can email everyone the stats really if it needs be. Yeah,
I'd certainly like to see them. Thank you.
No problem.
But yes, I do understand what you're saying about it sometimes being a secondary issue. I mean, anxiety can result from the problems with housing, stress, depression. Things like that can all result from from issues, but they can also be kind of the starting point for issues as well. So you've got to look at it in both ways. But thank you very much for that. I'm going to bring Councillor Aviat in now, and then Councillor Nugent-Finn.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Lorraine. I know I haven't been in the building yet, but if a person came in with a problem, or is there somebody sitting at the desk, or have you got a private room? Because I remember with the council, you'd have to book a private room with an interview. Otherwise, everyone, even if you're at the housing benefit desk, everyone can hear your business. So what happens if somebody walks up into the office?
And this is why we've had to be very careful about not to inundate this, the team at the moment. But we do have somebody. We have a reception that is not manned by a receptionist. It's manned by it's manned by a support worker, and we have 2 interview pods, and we also have space downstairs. That is it's empty at the moment unless we're doing training sessions. We have space for however the clients feel comfortable that they want to engage with us. And like I said, if it's something that they're not able to do at that point, we can arrange to meet them elsewhere as well. We're not stuck in that building. We can come to them if that's what's needed. So we will look to see what they need and fit in with their things. But we do, we have someone on our reception, and then if that person's busy, we have a second response, a third response, and then a fourth response to ensure that all our phones are answered and everyone is seen as quickly as possible when they come into the building. And we have 2 interview pods.
Thank you.
Okay, just take myself off mute then because I forgot. Sorry. Councillor Nugent-Finn, if you'd like to come in.
Thank you, Chair. John, could you explain to me, you talked about the white goods for some of the service users. Who do we use to deliver or to, to collect on behalf of our service users?
I think Lorraine probably would know that answer better than I do. Lorraine, could you help me out with that one, please?
What we do is if they've got funds, then obviously we will help them source it. It's up to them where they purchase them from. I forgot the name of the organisation that does recycled items, but obviously we would work with them. But what they usually come for is to find funds to access white goods. So it's about completing discretionary housing payments. It's about completing grants for Vickers Relief, and all sorts of agencies, whoever we can get funds off for them. Then once that money comes back, then we will sit with them and so it could be Argos, it could be that they get vouchers sent to them, so they have to purchase in a certain place. And then, of course, whatever grant we would include the delivery costs as well. So we don't have those resources to give them, but it's about accessing the funds so that they can go and buy them themselves. But once those funds are theirs, once we've applied for that grant, that's theirs. So they can go off, they can take the money and go off and buy that item where they want to. Usually, in most cases, they will want help with that. And potentially, by the time the grant has come through, they may well have moved on to another support provider. So we pass that information on to that provider as well.
Thank you, Lorraine. So we don't want anybody specifically, but we do we still have sort of supervised spend then? So whatever grants applied for and granted is then used for what's required.
A lot of the time now in the systems account, they get vouchers to spend in a certain place on a certain item. So yes, in that sense that they have no choice. If they get a grant, say from Vickers Relief, that grant is in their name, so we will help them purchase those items. But ultimately, if they choose not to accept our support for buying that items, it is their money. Like I said, most people absolutely want support and help as much as they can in purchasing those items, but we can't it is a choice thing that we have to remember. They have that choice.
Understand. Thanks very much, Lorraine. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, well, do we have any other questions? Okay, Gina, I believe, yes, if you'd like to come in. Yeah, I was just going to say you're muted, but you're not now.
Could you tell me, so you're telling me that this is a very colourful shop, I'm not going to miss it, and you get loads of people walking in for the door. Well, I didn't know about this shop, and I think it sounds fantastic. How do you advertise? How do people know about it? And yeah.
The issue is that we haven't opened enough to have those people. We've had an awful lot of phone calls, so most of our work has been done remotely as it stands. But we will be when we first opened, we advertised a lot on Facebook. We advertised in local communities, but again, this is the start. We every time we've planned on a launch, we've gone into a lockdown situation, so we couldn't. So now will be the time that we will be advertising to ensure that people know that we exist and we are there. So and like I said, it is a prominent location in Houghton Road. But like I said, you know, if you don't walk down Houghton Road, you may not have seen it.
Thank you.
Just to let you know, Gina, if you know where Lloyd's Chemist is on Halton Road, it's pretty much opposite there on the other side of the road.
Thank you.
Yeah, I walk past it most days. Okay, Mike, I believe you want to come in.
Just to follow on from Gina's point, Gina, we really want the outreach work to work also from the Penarth project and from your resource, your hub resource in St Luke's around St Luke's Avenue. I think what we identify is people probably don't like going into the civic offices to perhaps have that conversation with us. They would much prefer going to an arm's length or an outreach agency. Equally, we know people won't necessarily be in a position where they would commute into Barry, for example. So I think, you know, in the same way as Lorraine has mentioned the use of the food bank in the Barry area, the linkage with the Penarth Food Project and through your service, the residents group there, I think there's an amazing opportunity there to bring lots of different issues to a head. As we know, the food project gets people through the door. Once those people have come through the door, we can have those meaningful conversations with people if they're prepared to share that with us.
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other hands up, so I will just say thank you very, very much to Hedwyn and Lorraine for coming in and answering our questions and giving us some more information. Please let us know when the launch is and we will all try our best to attend. Thank you very much.
Chair, can we...
Yeah.
Sorry, Chair, just to double check, are we, are the committee just noting the recommendations on the report?
I forgot to ask that. Yes, sorry, it's been a very, very long day for me. Are we happy to move a note? I can see someone nodding. Anybody else? Yeah. Okay, so we are moving and noting. Thank you. So agenda item 6 then is the universal credit and COVID-19 impact on housing, on council housing tenants. I believe this is you, Nick, yes?
It is, yeah, thanks. Can everyone hear me okay, yeah? Okay, this report highlights the impact of COVID and the universal credit rollout on council tenants specifically, really. The committee's previously received reports and presentations, I think, prior to COVID. I remember one in the chamber where one of the money advisors and myself presented in quite a bit of detail on universal credit at that time. But for anyone who possibly needs a refresher and by way of background, really, I just start off giving a a bit more information about universal credit, really, just so everyone's clear on what we're talking about. Universal credit is a payment to cover living costs. It's paid monthly into a bank account, and it's paid to the claimants typically on either on low incomes or people not in work. Universal credit replaces 6 previous legacy benefits. So things like income support, job seekers allowance, the income-based part, ESA, child tax credit, working tax credit, and also housing benefit. So universal credit is slowly replacing housing benefit for a lot of people. Importantly, universal credit includes payments towards housing costs, and it's paid directly to the claimant, so not the landlord. And that's a significant change, really. There are some exceptions to that when the housing costs can be paid to the landlord, but the idea behind universal credit and the logic really is that it mimics salary, mimics the salary, and encourages financial responsibility. So this old idea that sometimes we used to hear was that tenants, I don't pay my rent, I'm on housing benefit. Clearly, universal credit promotes financial responsibility and ownership, and people use the money to pay their rent. So that's just some basic background into universal credit. Apologies for people who will be aware of that, but just so we're all clear on what the report is referring to and what I'm talking about, really. The report goes on to talk about some trends in arrears. And over the last 2 years, it's been a very challenging time, really, in terms of collecting rent. Our rent arrears have risen from 1.7% of our rental income to 3.2%. So in financial terms, that's an increase in arrears from about £380,000 to £695,000. So, significant increase. COVID has had an impact, you won't be surprised to hear, on a lot of people living in the Vale and especially council tenants. Some of the impacts have been around things like furlough, reduced hours work during various lockdowns, jobs coming to an end. And what it's done as well, it's speeded up the migration of people onto universal credit. So as people were going on to it at a rate of probably about four or five a week, then that increased quite significantly during the pandemic when more and more people were affected. Tenants in receipt of universal credit have higher arrears than those on housing benefit or people who pay their rent. The average debt, and you should always treat with a note of caution, really, average debt, but average debt for universal credit claimant is £448 compared to about £150 for somebody in receipt of housing benefit. Not everybody in receives universal credit in arrears, but but some people have got significant arrears, so that average is across the board, really. But what we see when we look at the debt profile is that a high proportion of the money owed is by people in receipt of universal credit. 21% of tenants owe 81% of the total arrears. So, it gives you a bit of a clue there of the impact universal credit is having on our total rent arrears figure, and also for individuals in terms of the money that they owe. There's currently about 1,000 people in receipt of universal credit, and that's doubled over the last 2 years. And there's a table in the report which shows the vast increase of arrears or vast increase in the number of people going across onto universal credit. As I say, is about 1,000 on there now. Analysis of the profile of tenant debt kind of shows a fairly sort of regular pattern, really, whereas when people move on to universal credit, their arrears increase for a period of time, but then plateau and stable as people get more used to managing their money, get more used to the benefit, get more used to paying the rent on time. So then things plateau out and start to reduce slowly. And that experience was borne out by some of the pilot studies as well. Some of the councils were early adopters of universal credit, reported back that trend as well. So what we are seeing at the moment, hopefully, is a bit of a plateauing out of our total arrears figures. So that figure I quoted, £695,000, that's been steady for a few months now, and I would hope that would remain stable and start to reduce as we're able to manage people's payments, as people get more and more used to the benefits. What I would also want to mention, really relevant to the pandemic especially, is the court the legal process. There's been some significant changes to the court process during the pandemic. The first of all was the extension of a notice period. Prior to commencing any formal legal action, we need to serve what's called a notice seeking possession, and the notice period has been extended to 6 months. It was previously 1 month prior to COVID. So that window of opportunity before any further action is taken is probably not window of opportunity, not the best term. That period of the notice anyway is extended, so we can't take any sort of legal action. What also happened during the pandemic is that the courts were closed, so it was not possible to escalate any very high arrears. And it's possible, and when we look at some specific cases, what we tend to see is that some people have switched on to that and taken that opportunity not to pay their rent during that period, because possibly they knew that there wasn't a possibility of them being put into court. The courts are open again now, and legal action is possible, and we have seen some quite large payments when we started talking about court action and possession action. People, larger payments are found, and people who were in debt previously have resolved their arrears quite quickly. So the sanction of court sometimes, although it's a last resort and something we always seek to avoid, does sometimes focus people's attention when it comes to prioritising rent. So I've painted a fairly sort of bleak and depressing picture in terms of the arrears, really. But in the report, there's a number of graphs there which give us an important context. It shows us how other local authorities are dealing with rent arrears and what their totals are. We also benchmark via an organisation called Housemark with a range of other councils and housing associations as well. And pre-COVID, the Vale was a very strong performer in terms of rent arrears. It was one of the lowest. And what the graphs show, I think it's on page 6 of the report, really, at paragraph 2.8, is that the Vale performance on arrears remains strong compared to others. You have to have quite a keen eye to decipher that orange line. But our arrears, although they've increased significantly, are still low compared with others. Interesting as well, and when you look at the graphs comparing other councils, 2.10 shows the percentage of UC claimants in the council. And you'll see that prior to COVID, we had a relatively smaller percentage of tenants in receipt of universal credit. That's increased at a quite a rapid rate, really. So our overall rate of UC claimants is comparable with others, but it's really jacked up during the COVID pandemic. The report goes on to highlight some of the interventions and the assistance that's provided, and it makes particular mention of the money advice team and the money advice service. We're really proud of that service, and the results that generates are really impressive. There was 931 interventions over the last year, which has helped tenants to realise an additional income of £423,000. So that's not money paid to the council, that's extra money in tenants' pockets by way of claiming the right benefits, accessing grants and loans, getting on better tariffs, but also managing money better as well. So income and expenditure and making the correct decisions regarding money, really. So that team continues to have a big burden of work. There's a big demand on the service, but we're keeping an eye on how accessible that is, and where there are priority cases, tenants are able to receive the advice they need pretty quickly. Because what we don't want is somebody burying their head in the sand or not looking for help for ages, then finally making the call and then finding they've got a 2 or 3 week wait to speak to somebody. So those priority cases where there are high arrears and high levels of debt, which we do see a lot of, are able to get the assistance and the expert advice, specialist advice, really, really quickly. In terms of other assistance, our recovery process contains, for arrears, contains lots and lots of warnings. There's reminders, prompts, letters, visits, repayment agreements. People are in a position sometimes where they can't pay off large amounts of money in one go. We're realistic, and people will. The emphasis is about setting affordable repayment agreements so that people can actually afford them. There's assistance when people go on to universal credit initially. We contact everybody, offer advice at a money advice appointment to make sure people understand the benefit and can budget appropriately. there is advice and assistance via the job centre as well with that, but we go behind and make sure that that is reinforced and people clearly understand the benefit and make the payments. There are automatic payment reminders as well. So where people are on universal credit, we make a note of their payment dates, because that will vary for individuals. And just prior to their universal payment date, they'll get a text from us, an automated text prompting them saying, remember to pay your rent. Really, is just a gentle nudge. So when the money is in people's account, for some people there are a lot of competing priorities, people wanting money. But that's just a little nudge to say, remember your rent, because it is a priority debt and it's more important than some other debts that you may own. There's a court pre-action protocol remains, so that requires landlords to make sure that we do absolutely everything we can prior to going to court. So we adhere to that, and there was an extra layer coming out of COVID, which was put on that, which is a COVID-specific questionnaire where we have to demonstrate that we've asked tenants regarding the impact of COVID on their finances, and taken into account and put in place any mitigation. So, if there were any COVID impacts, that they were clearly understood and mitigated prior to a case going to court. There's the APAs that manage payments, mentioned right at the beginning. There are cases where universal credit can be paid to the landlord. Clearly, that kind of defeats the point of financial responsibility and undermines that. So that's not the case in every case, but where there are vulnerabilities or people have got specific issues regarding paying the rent, or they've been in arrears in the past, or maybe some support needs which may affect their ability to pay the rent, we can apply for an APA direct payment. So that part of at least the claimant then is not worried about the rent. That part of it is paid across to us, and is not potentially spent on anything else really. And as well, the income team and the money advice team will make referrals to the housing support supporting people team. Heather was on the call earlier. Clearly, there's support workers and individuals who can invest lots of time and work with individuals to work through lots of issues. Because what we tend to find is that where we see debt isn't the only issue. There are lots of other issues as well, associated issues, and people may not be coping. So if there are other issues, the money advisors and the income officers will make referrals to supporting people. So just in conclusion, really, just to sort of emphasise this point, that eviction is the absolute last resort. Sometimes people think that lots of people are being evicted, and it's happening very often. There were no evictions during the COVID pandemic, so there was a period of 2 years where there were no evictions. It's possible now, but only when all other avenues have been exhausted, and it is very, very rare that happens. Sound a bit like that Crime Watch presenter, Nick Ross, who sort of reassures everyone at the end of the programme. But yeah, we don't evict people very often, and it's only if we get absolutely no engagement, or we feel we've exhausted all other avenues and the arrears are really, really high. The emphasis is always about managing the payments, working with the individuals, and just ensuring that those arrears are reducing, even if it's at a very sort of slow rate, really. So the future is very challenging. I think somebody earlier in the meeting has sort of flagged up already the cost of living crisis, the fuel costs, inflation. It's a very difficult environment out there at the moment for people, and we've recently been acquired some additional funding really for food packs, because we have become aware that people find it very difficult, or find a stigma behind going to the food bank and accessing food. So we've got some grant funding which we've been making at the food packs and delivering to people in arrears and people who are receiving money advice. And the anecdotal, the feedback that we're getting is really, really positive. People are so grateful to see it, and they're really struggling. And things like this are a lifeline. So we know firsthand that it's very difficult out there, and there are very tough times ahead. So our services are going to come under some real demands, some real pressures, but the team are ready and equipped to cope. And what I would say to people is that always seek help. Sometimes it can be embarrassing and people might bury their heads in the sand, but help is there, and we would just much prefer tenants to engage with us and say that they're finding it difficult and work with us because then we can help people. If we don't know, and if people don't answer the phone or don't respond to letters or don't answer the door, it becomes very difficult. So, you know, we are very good at sort of establishing a rapport. We can normally get in touch with people, but that is so important, really. So the recommendation on the report is to consider the impact of COVID-19 and the continued UC rollout on both council housing tenants and the impact on the council, really, by way of the council's rental income stream. So if anyone's got any questions, happy to have a go at answering those.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Micah, you wanted to come in on anything on that?
Just to reflect on one of the last points Nick was making in relation to this is specifically talking around the impact on council tenants, and I think we recognise corporately that there's an impact across all of our communities in all areas, and I think the discussions we're having internally as a chief officer group are around making sure that we are coordinating all of the activities, both in terms of the statutory services as well as third sector and community services, to make sure that we don't have a patchwork approach, so that some areas have access or some individuals have more access than others. And that's a piece of work that we're looking at now. And I think very much as a council, we'll probably adopt the same approach as we did with COVID and the Vale Heroes work that we were doing. When we were obviously responding during the height of the pandemic. And there's an awful lot of work just starting going on behind the scenes now around how the council can support our communities better. So I would anticipate that in the next couple of weeks and months that you will see a lot more coming through in terms of what are the services out there and how do we ensure that all residents in the Vale can perhaps engage and have the same access to the services which Nick has mentioned our tenants are getting at the moment. Just to reflect on universal credit, just very briefly, I did read recently that the acceleration of transfer of tenants from legacy benefits to universal credit has somewhat stalled over the last 2 years. And I think what we will see is an acceleration of tenants moving on to universal credit. So it is a very difficult picture for us, and clearly we have to balance that the rental income we receive from our tenants delivers the services that they receive. So it's a balancing act that Nick and the team do exceptionally well in terms of balancing obviously that income requirement versus obviously the support that we give people. So thank you to Nick and the team as well. You know, in terms of getting us through the last 2 years, and I suppose it's not the time to take the foot off the gas at the moment. We'll be doing whatever we can to support our tenants going forward.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you. Does anybody have any questions? To be honest, any questions I would have had were answered very well before I could even ask them, so all the information was there. Thank you very, very much. I'm assuming we don't have any questions because nobody's got any hands up.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't.
My hand's been up. Yeah. I don't know why, but it's not registered.
You're
Yeah.
not on camera, which
Right. All right
so
then.
I can't see.
My question is, when Universal first came out, you made your claim, and they initially paid you 4 weeks, but you were 2 weeks in arrears. Have they changed the criteria so it covers that now?
No, you paid in arrears, Heather, for universal credit. I think what some people were able to do is claim advance payments. So that might be what you're thinking about. Where
no,
people...
I was thinking what it was. You made your claim, and they paid you, and when they paid you, they only paid you 4 weeks, and you waited 6 weeks, but they backdated it 4, so you were 2 weeks in arrears anyway.
Oh, the waiting time was it when there was a period where you...
And I know a lot of people in food bankers have difficulty with that 2 weeks because they can't catch up with it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I need to check with the money advice. And I think there's somebody from CAB on the line who may know better than me, but my perception is that waiting time that was reduced or removed. So the benefit is paid in arrears now, but there isn't a gap, if you like, where people don't have payment for any length of time.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Colette might want to make that point.
Okay, do we have any other questions? If you're not on camera, please use the raise hand function so that I can see. Okay, all right, I'm assuming there are no more questions then. Are we happy to go with the recommendations for this report? Yeah. The scrutiny committee consider the report highlighting the impact of COVID-19 and universal credit rollouts. Okay, thank you very much. Agenda item 7 is the homelessness prevention strategy 2018 to 2022, the monitoring report. I believe this is Nick and Mike again.
Yeah,
so
I'll lead on this, Chair. Just very briefly, what you in essence have in front of you is an end of term report. It feels very much like an end of term report. As you can see from the report itself, the homeless prevention strategy was from 2018 to 2022 and is coming to an end. And I'll touch on in a moment what the next steps are in terms of our strategic thinking going forward past 2022. As you can see from the report, and we've reported this on a regular basis to Homes and Safe Scrutiny Committee in terms of an update on the action plan, you have a report and an action plan. The statutory requirement on the council to deliver a homeless prevention strategy was a result of the Housing Wales Act 2014, and as part of that piece of legislation, we were required to deliver a strategy and an action plan. There were some key themes that strategy had to deliver against, and they're highlighted in 1.1 of the report. So basically, in some new duties, so providing assistance to people threatened with homelessness, irrespective of priority need, local connection, providing appropriate help and assistance to enable people to secure a suitable home, assistance at an early stage. Members will be aware that previously the prevention stage was 28 days. So if somebody was outside of that 28-day window, we were under no obligation. And the legislation introduced a 56-day period at which we were required to provide assistance within that period. And then a new power in relation to discharging our homelessness duty into the private rented sector, which is clearly an area that we've had to rely on, and I've reported, and we've reported over the year what we're trying to do in terms of increasing the supply of social housing available, but having to rely on private sector assistance to help in that regard. Moving the report on to 1.4, you can also see that under the guidance related to the development of the strategy, we were also required to consider a number of specific categories and groups of people. So those leaving prison, the young people that we look after leaving care, those in the armed forces, point that was mentioned earlier around mental health and the importance of providing services and responses to people leaving hospital, but also within the community itself, and how we would signpost and be able to assist people accessing mental health services in the community. Under key issues for consideration, there are the 4 bullet points there in terms of the key outcomes that we were looking to deliver through our strategy. And all in all, I'm very pleased to be able to report that other than a small number of actions, the vast majority of actions have actually been achieved in very difficult circumstances. And I won't dwell on the reasons, they've been mentioned in a number of other reports in terms of what ourselves and our residents have had to face in the last couple of years. Some of those areas where we haven't achieved actions. Some of them were outside of our control. So as you can see at 2.3, there are 4 actions which haven't been completed and are unachievable at the present time. And I'll just talk you very briefly through those. They're actually in the action plan, and they're the last actions at the end of the action plan. But a Rolling Homes for You advert, what we were looking to do there, we'd traditionally advertise properties every 2 weeks. Under Homes for You, we'd reduce that to a weekly period, but we wanted to move that on. So if a property became available tomorrow, it would be advertised potentially tomorrow, rather than waiting another week until the new advert went live. Now, we've had to stall that and delay that, but that is an intention to introduce that with the implementation of the new housing system that we talked about in an earlier report. Delivery of tenancy ready training within prison. As you can see from the action plan and the regular updates against that action, you can see that's not following discussions that we had with Ministry of Justice. They were very much developing strategic thinking that they would be providing services within the prison setting. And what we've said is that we will keep a watching brief on that. And if we felt that those services weren't appropriate and they weren't impacting on homelessness, then we would re-engage. Non-engagement strategy for clients in temporary accommodation. It was mentioned again in an earlier report. It's about assisting people to do for themselves, and clearly we've got some very complex clients that sometimes won't engage, and that causes issues certainly within our supported housing projects, and sometimes in terms of our move on work that we do with some of our RSL partners, where behaviours can sometimes cause issues around sustainability of those tenancies. So what we've started doing there is to actually look at some best practice across all of the accommodation providers, and the intention is that we will adopt that best practice so that people in different accommodation settings will have the same response or a similar response in terms of how we would respond to non-engagement. And finally, it's down there as something that isn't achievable, analysis of support needs, but you can see from the update we've actually have done the analysis. It's just that it's not been adopted yet, and I'll come to that in a moment in terms of the next steps in terms of how we will look at developing our next homelessness strategy. Following through at 2.4, 2.5 and 2.6, we give a sort of that end of year statement. So currently, as we all know, the significant challenge is single person households, and we still have 97 people in bed and breakfast and hotel accommodation, and we have over 110 people in other forms of temporary accommodation, so over 200 people currently in temporary accommodation. We've had significant additional temporary accommodation pressures during the pandemic, and as we've identified, and I think Scrutiny Committee took evidence on this point when you looked at your recent review of as part of Task and Finish around where the particular pressure points are, and particularly those under 35 years, and the lack of options for those people because of the availability of help and accommodation that those individuals can occupy. We've had our adverse effects also on the private rented sector, which we've also spoken to you about previously. I mentioned that we've had to rely on discharge of duties to the private sector, but what we're finding is the private sector is very much a more difficult option for us at the moment, partly around the lack of the huge amount of demand rented housing, but also the constriction in terms of supply. I won't go, Nick has mentioned issues around the court possession proceedings, so I won't dwell on that. Nick has covered that off. We talked about task and finish. There's also a reference in the document in terms of the recommendations and in terms of where we go in the future. So this strategy ends this year, and we've been working at developing a new strategy. That document is now in draft. We've been doing an awful lot of work in terms of consulting with statutory, non-statutory agencies in developing the key themes and actions. We are required to provide that to Welsh Government initially in its draft form, which we should do in the next few days. Once Welsh Government have had an opportunity to consider our response, that will come back to Cabinet probably in May, for May to approve it as a draft consultation or engagement document. And at that stage, we will then re-engage on that draft document. Obviously, Scrutiny Committee members at that time will have the ability to review and consider the priorities and and reflect, I suppose, and anticipate it will include a number of the key areas that Task and Finish group actually identified, which will form, obviously, will form the backbone of that strategy. So that strategy will be a 4-year strategy, as this one was. One of the recommendations that we will be making clearly is that strategy will need to be monitored, and it's very likely that Cabinet will obviously, as they've done previously, will have a role there for Homes and Safe Communities Committee going forward, in terms of having that very important function, monitoring our performance and we're achieving our outcomes. I'll leave it at that, if I may, Chair. A very quick run through. There's lots and lots of positive outcomes, as you can see, lots of green in the action plan, and I'd love to talk to you more on those. But as I say, in terms of the report, it's very much an end-of-term report. In summary, we've done exceptionally well over the last 2 years in extremely difficult circumstances. However, as I've mentioned earlier, this will continue to be a focus for this council going forward for years to come. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Nick, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I think, the only point I'd make really, the new strategy, I think, previously it's been a homelessness prevention strategy, and then we've got our strategic documents relating to supporting people. The next document will be a kind of combined strategy, taking up homelessness and the supporting people, in acknowledgement that homelessness and vulnerabilities are clearly linked, and the funding needs to be aligned to tackle those. And that's something that's come up in the Task and Finish group, isn't it? There's been a big focus, a strong focus on supporting people as well. So when you see that strategy, it will kind of have that dual aim of supporting vulnerable individuals and also tackling and preventing homelessness.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I was part of that Task and Finish group, as you guys know. A few of us were on this committee, and pretty much everything we raised in that has been put into this report, and it's been taken on board, and things will be going on with those, I'm sure. I only really have one question, that's regarding the temporary accommodation down on the Court Road site, the old abattoir site. As I mentioned to you in the agenda conference, I actually know somebody who has moved in there. He is loving it. And I'm just wondering if there are any further plans to build further units like that anywhere else in the Vale.
We're urgently looking for alternative meanwhile sites like the Court Road opportunity. I think I've mentioned in an earlier meeting that we have a couple of sites that we're looking at the moment. They're at the very early option appraisal stage. The difficulty in
I think Mike frozen.
I think Mike frozen.
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear us still, Mike. It might be worth turning off your camera and might help. Oh, you're back.
Coming back.
You're back.
You're back. Sorry about that. So what I'm saying is that the site there was ideal because it had mains, electric, and sewerage on site. It's very expensive to put those things into a site that doesn't have that. We do have a number of sites that we're looking at. We're doing options appraisals on them at the moment. Interestingly, Welsh Government, and it's linked with perhaps what's happening in Ukraine at the moment, I suppose, and the longer term impact of housing generally across the UK. But, you know, looking at the Vale perspective, there's quite likely to be additional capital funding made available through Welsh Government to look at how we can build additional accommodation more quickly. And the modular housing that we have at Court Road is obviously an area where, you know, you can have that on site and built within a couple of months, whereas a traditional build will obviously take you the best part of a year. So that's an area we are looking at it really seriously at the moment. Whether it would be the same as what you can see at Court Road, or whether it is something more that can be delivered more quickly, like container type accommodation, which, you know, we've seen delivered in other areas. Cardiff has got a number of examples, for example, where that has happened. So as soon as we have those sites, our intention is to deliver more. It's just having the most appropriate site to do so.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I have. Does anybody else have any other questions? Again, if you're not on camera, please either put it in the chat or raise your hand, use the raise hand function. Okay. I don't see anybody else with any other questions then. So what I will ask then in that case is that is everybody happy to go along with the two recommendations from this? The first, that the committee considers the progress to date in implementing the Homeless Prevention Strategy and Action Plan in Appendix 1. Are we happy with that?
Yeah.
And the second, that the Homes and Safe Communities Scrutiny Committee note the additional actions included and the significant pressures on the service, its staff and resources as a result of the COVID pandemic. Are we happy to note? Okay. Well, that's the end of, that's the last item on the agenda. I have nothing else urgent in part 1 or part 2. So all I will do now is to thank you all for coming and to remind you that the next meeting is on the 15th of June, 2022. No meeting in May. Okay. A whole new election. Some of us may not be here in June, but I hope we all are. Be good to see you. Yeah, good luck everybody with the elections.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye. See you